Do you want to live more sustainably but aren't sure where to start or how it fits in with your everyday living? The ReNewy Living Podcast simplifies sustainability so you can feel confident to take small, meaningful actions that fit into your lifestyle. Based on the lands of the Awabakal and Worimi people in Newcastle, Australia, you'll learn how to live lighter on our planet through practical ideas, stories from like-minded people, and examples of businesses doing great things. With an open heart and mind, join me, Marty Lee, as we explore how to consume less, build stronger community connections, and thrive in your neighbourhood, wherever you call home. Welcome to the ReNewy Living Podcast. Hello, I'm Marty Lee, and welcome to the ReNewy Living Podcast. Using healthy and sustainable materials in your interior design is an overlooked and very much not considered, yet important element in your daily living. I'm chatting with Nadine Samwell from Eco Edition. Nadine helps homeowners with better choices for healthy and sustainable materials for new builds and renovations. And it's all with the aim of making it simpler and easier for you. She helps you understand what sustainable interior design means and talks about the myths around sustainable materials and home design. G'day, Nadine.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Now let's get stuck into why is sustainable interior design often overlooked and not considered?
I think because there's a lot of conversation about making our homes run on renewables. So there's a lot of focus on using solar panels and batteries and water tanks, making our homes sort of airtight, making them more comfortable. So I think there's a lot of talk in the media about that. People are then focusing on that when they're doing their renovations or they're building new homes. And part of those things are actually a requirement when they're building homes. So you have to have water tanks, you have to have considered insulation. The thing that people then don't think about is what are the materials that make up the home? And particularly, I'm an interior designer, so my focus and interest is what goes inside the home, what do we see and touch and, breathe in inside the house. So I think there's some really important reasons why they're being overlooked because we're trying to, get off the reliance of using the grid and using solar. So there's really good things, but I think when you're building or renovating, it's a bigger thought process than I think what's taking place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very overwhelming just to make all of those decisions, the ones that are required.
Yeah.
And to the ones that perhaps people haven't thought about of those everyday like lounge furniture, curtains, kitchen bench tops, like how that also comes into play for living sustainably on an everyday basis.
Yeah, that's right.
You've recognised that there's 3 myths that surround sustainable home design. And we're going to go through all 3 of those. But let's start with your first myth. What is that?
I think the biggest myth is that sustainable materials are always more expensive. I mean, it's always said, it's in the media and it's often stated as an always fact, like there's never any way around it. And I don't think that's true. There are materials that are sustainable, that are well priced, but it just depends on what material you're actually looking for. There's many different ways to achieve the end look. And I think in any type of material, if you want like the high-end material, there's always been a premium on that type of material because generally it's extremely durable and you're going to get your money's worth out of it. But as far as just sustainable materials being more expensive, no, I don't think that's the case all the time.
Can you give us some really good examples of the variances that can happen with costs?
Well, so for example, if you wanted solid timber floorboards, is this what you mean? Like how you can vary from going, I want that look of a solid timber. Okay, so if you wanted solid timber and the best choice that you could make is recycled timber floorboards because they've been pulled out of another project or home or some type of building. they've been refinished and then they put into your project. So you're saving something from going to landfill. So that, in my opinion, is the best we could do. But it's time consuming to refinish floorboards or refinish timber to make it ready for another product. So therefore, that's the most expensive that you could get. But you can still achieve a beautiful timber floorboard look without having to go for a recycled board. So you could use one that's a certified timber. So it's come out of a sustainably managed forest. It's not virgin, from a virgin forest or protected forest or something like that. So that will then be cheaper than the recycled timber. The next sort of category under that would be an engineered board. So that can be still made of recycled materials, and it has a sliver of real timber on top. So that's the one that you see and that you walk on. So that's a really cost-effective way to get a timber look. But when you go into solid timbers, you're paying a little bit more up front, but then it lasts for generations and you can keep refinishing it. So it's that balance of, yes, something may be a little bit more expensive up front, but it'll save you money over the lifetime of the house. And you can just refinish it. You can change the way it looks. You can change the colour. If you wanted to, you could paint it. So there's so many more options. And then when you're finished with it, it has the opportunity to be made into something else. Whereas if you've gone into another material, perhaps it's not quite as durable, or it's a mixture of materials. So say an engineered board, not as easy to recycle at its end of life, not as easy to refinish it if it gets dented.
That composite factor, it does bring the cost down. But yeah, the end of lifespan is very different to something that's 100%. I like that example of the timber floorboards. We have carpet in our house, and at the time it was really expensive. This is like 25 years ago. And we decided to choose wool carpet, 100% wool carpet. So yes, it was really expensive. But for us, we knew that we needed the quality, and it feels good. Like when we have young children in the house, for them to get down on the carpet is such a different, it's giving those different senses, that feeling sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a really interesting movement, if you like, about having our homes more connected to nature. And the term is called biophilia, and it means that like as humans, we have this innate need to be connected to nature, and to bring that into our homes means it's something that has a texture that's natural, and you can either mimic it or you can make it real. So you could make it like your solid timbers, or like you've just mentioned, the wool carpet. And synthetic materials just don't give you that same type of feel. So there's something that's, I think we need to have this connection to nature, and those natural materials give you that in a way that other materials don't. So you just feel more grounded, more comfortable in your house. There's lots of advantages to having nature in your home.
How does that biophilic design impact upon the healthy side of what you talk about as a healthy interior design?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. So the well-being factor is an important one. Just being around natural materials and having a view out to nature, or hearing, like if you're, say, live near the beach and you can hear the sound of the waves in your home, that helps your well-being. It lowers your heart rate, it lowers stress levels, it, improves your sense of, happiness and all of those things. And, like when we hear rain, people can like have this lovely thought of when you go to sleep at night and it's raining, it makes you feel safe. So well-being is a really important aspect of having natural materials in your home. And the other aspect of having biophilic elements in your home is having healthy materials inside the house. So there's a lot of materials, synthetic materials that can be made with a lot of chemicals. And those materials and those chemicals can end up inside our bodies, and some of them never leave. There's a class of chemicals called forever chemicals, and because our body can't deal with them, so they stay inside us. And healthy materials, there's no concern about that because, say, timber is probably one of the simplest materials you can get because it's just from the tree and it's just how it's finished. So it's just the timber and what's coated on top of it to protect it. And so a healthy material is one that doesn't affect our health when it's inside the home. It also hasn't affected anyone's health when it's been manufactured or produced in any way or installed. When things get installed inside our homes, they can be installed with a lot of adhesives and other elements that will just off-gas inside our house. And off-gassing means that they have volatile organic compounds, which pollutes the air, lowers the air quality.
The example that is perfect for what you're talking about is engineered stone a number of years ago with the off-gassing and the damage that it has to the people that are working in that area.
Yeah. Yeah, engineered stone was banned in Australia, and Australia only so far. So we've been leading the world on this one because there was a lot of incidents of tradies and stonemasons and the people in the factory being affected by the silica dust that was coming out of the engineered stone. So engineered stone has a component of glass, and then when that's cut, then the silica dust is released. And I think the industries tried for a long time to deal with the dust by the way it was cut. So they had to be cut using water and they had to do dust suppression, and there was a whole lot of things. And then that was thought to not be enough. So then they just did that flat out ban. So as a homeowner, it won't be affecting your health when it's installed. It could if you've decided that you need to cut it for whatever reason, and then you'd be inhaling all of the dust. But it's generally the installers, so they're the ones who really copped it. So yeah, it's one thing to think about how a material or product is going to affect us as homeowners inside the house, but also, yeah, like you've just pointed out, the people who are installing it. It's an important part of the decision process.
It's expensive at what cost? At what cost to whom? You know, not just to us, but that life. From beginning to end as well. And there's a lot more information that's coming about many products. What is the cost? How can you sell a cheap organic T-shirt for $5? At what cost and to whom? So I know that's a different subject.
Yeah.
But it does make you think from, what perspective?
Yeah, you're right. It's a really important one. And it goes back to, I think, the first question you were asking about the myths, because one of the reasons why some sustainable products might be more expensive is because they have eco-label certification, which means they've gone through a process where the material's been checked, it's been assessed to tick a whole lot of boxes from a sustainability perspective, but also too that no human rights have been abused. So there's no slave labour involved. It hasn't been taken out of an area that there's some type of conflict, and then sometimes some of those materials are funding that conflict. There's a whole range of things that can go into having a material that is good for everybody. It's good for the planet and it's good for people. And having an eco-label certification means that you don't need to think about any of those things. There is a cost to get it certified. For me, that little bit of extra money is peace of mind. I know that it's fine. I don't have to have a bit of an icky feeling when I buy, like you said, a T-shirt and going, who's paid for my cheapness? Who's paid for my bargain? Someone will have. So someone's copped it at somewhere along the line. It could have been the environment, it could be people, it could be both, for me to save a little bit of money.
Looking out for proper certified labelling is really important, but that leads very nicely into the next myth of green labelling in general. We're very attuned to looking out for symbols and logos and colours.
Yeah, so when we're at the supermarket and we're buying our food, we are, like you said, we're well used to dealing with what those different labels mean. So if a food product is organic, if it doesn't have extra colours and additives, and that's something that we've been used to. What I'm trying to help people with is getting used to thinking about that when we buy materials as well. So when we talk about eco-label certification, that then gives the companies the ability to be able to say that something is organic or whatever quality it is that they've decided to go for with that product. But there's a whole lot of people or products that are either stretching the truth, so it's not actually real, or they're just blatantly making things up. And there's some terms that do become a bit tricky to prove that it is what they say they are. So typically with greenwashing, it's called, if there's certification, or there's not certification, but people are making a claim about something. So greenwashing normally involves terms like natural, organic, non-toxic, those types of terms. The use of the colour green, we just now associate, like, green means good and green means healthy. Not always the case. Green can be on a bottle of spray and wipe or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy, which is certainly not healthy. I've done my research on those kind of things because the way you clean your home is also another element of keeping your house healthy.
Yeah, exactly. We just need to, when we start, like when we go into the supermarket, we know what labels we need to look out for. And it's the same thing when we're buying a product or a material for our house. We need to question, how is this made? What's in it? So an easy way to understand what's in it is to look for eco-label certification. And there's hundreds of them actually around the world, and they can cover all different facets or different types of materials. So there is eco-label certification for timbers, for fabrics that go into, say, our curtains and our lounges and cushions. Carpets have certification. There's a whole range of things. So, that is really important to understand what's in our materials and try and stay away from being greenwashed, because there's a lot of marketing equity, if you like, in using those terms. Yeah, they're just jumping on a bandwagon to try and get as much money out of a product unfairly.
Yeah, Nadine, that's really helpful to understand about the eco-label certifications. No doubt we can have some links in the show notes that can help you see which labels are certified, the proper ones to look out for.
Yeah. On my my design blog on Eco Edition, I've got a post on all the different eco labels to look out for, the ones that you'll see readily. And you can definitely have people look to that site.
Thanks, that's super helpful information. There's another myth that's out there that we all need to know about.
Yeah, I think something that the media has created, that all sustainable homes look the same. And I think it's the idea that maybe they're a little bit handmade, it's maybe a little bit of a hippie commune type of look, where it's all like rough sawn timber, things just thrown together. It's a bit of a timber shack. And that's what a sustainably made home is. But the reality is it can look like anything that you want. Every style of home can be sustainably made. Everything from a Queenslander to a Victorian cottage to something that does look quite modern and quite sleek. You can be any type of interior style you want. So no, it's just that's a total out and out myth. I don't know really where it came from. Maybe it was early adopters who decided to build everything out of timber, and then there became a bit of a style of that. But nowadays, if you pick up any sustainable architecture magazine, from cover to cover, they're vastly different. So that's an easy one.
And the magazines that you showed the other day when we met up was an Australian one called Green Magazine.
Yeah.
I borrowed that one from the local library. So get onto your local library and you can borrow that one digitally as well as a paper version. And the other one was by ReNew Australia called Sanctuary.
Yeah, both of those are brilliant. So both of those magazines will feature predominantly Australian homes. I think it's just Australian. And everything from homes to apartments to townhouses, like every style of housing that you can think of, and in a huge array of styles and price ranges as well. And some of those homes have every single bell and whistle on them that they could possibly have. And others, people have just done them over time as they've had the money. So I think that's the interesting thing about those magazines, is there's generally something in there for every different homeowner and every type of like style of design that you're interested in.
They're great because they give the visuals. They've got the beautiful photos. They've got the story that goes with it. And right at the back of that particular article, it's usually got all the specs.
Yeah.
So that if something takes your interest and you want to find out why that home interior is more sustainable, then it usually lays out the specs for you. So it's quite a good resource.
Yeah, I find that really handy. I am constantly flipping between the story as I'm reading it and that back page all the time, because as I'm looking at a photo, I'm thinking about, well, what material is that? And then I quickly flip to the back to see what it is. And it just gives you a much deeper understanding of how they've designed and built the project. But it's also a shopping list. So it cuts so many corners and saves so much time for people who are wanting to renovate or build, that they can just be flicking to that list. And it's just a great starting point, because when you're doing work on your home, it's time consuming, and, any little bit of help we can have is great.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier. So that combined with your knowledge, hopefully this is a really good inroad to realising that living more sustainably and looking at your furnishings, your furniture, if you're doing upgrades as well. So kitchen, you've also got me thinking about, we need to do upgrades for a couple of areas of our house. We've got primarily floorboards throughout the house. And when the house was built, we didn't build the house. There were some tiled areas. And I personally don't like tiles. I find them very cold for a temperate climate. And I'm looking at cork as a really complementary flooring material to go with the timber floorboards.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's because when you go from a timber floorboard to a tile, it's so much harder under your foot, and whether you've got shoes on or bare feet, you just feel it in a different way. And the cork is just such a lovely transition. Walking around on cork without shoes on, we're talking, going back to biophilia, you're feeling that textural difference, and you're feeling it different underfoot. So it's just a really nice surface because it's not as hard. It's a little bit more forgiving when you drop things as well. So particularly in the kitchen, if you're dropping a glass, say, it's not going to land on the floor in the same way that it would on a tile. But in saying that, it's still really durable. Like, I've heard from people who've had bamboo for 20 odd years and it still holds up, it still looks good, but it's a natural material and it's going to cop some little, dings and scratches along the way. And I think that's something that we need to accept in our homes, that they don't need to look like a showroom for the next 25 years. That's not real life. That's not reality.
I absolutely agree on that one. Your house doesn't need to look like it's straight out of a catalogue.
Yeah.
And also I feel like living sustainably is about embracing imperfection.
I agree. I think materials that age over time and age well just make a home so much more interesting. There's a design style that became very popular and might still be. I see it in homes. They're up for sale quite often at the moment, and everything's white. It's all white walls. It's a really light timber floor. It's either a white bench top, and there's just texturally, there's nothing going on. So you're in this kind of very sterile white box. There's nothing tactile. There's nothing you can touch. And I think the beautiful thing about natural materials is they change and age over time. So they develop these patinas or these sort of markings where the different sort of colours come out in a different way, or the colour changes itself. And to me, that just adds another layer of interest. It's like an extra story. I mean, not that you want to sort of celebrate problems that have happened, but you could go, I remember that night, that's when I dropped the, or whatever it is. And, you're kind of collecting, the materials around your house are kind of collecting history or documenting the history of your home. And I think that's a lovely thing.
Yeah, I'm very much with you on that one, because our home is quite an eclectic feel of natural materials, lots of vintage that it's either passed through the generations. So it does have that feel to it. It has the memories and the stories that go with it, but it creates a very individual look.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really important, because in the media there's a lot of talk about styles. It's getting everyone into, what the Hampton style that's in, or there's now a Mediterranean style, and it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, it's a lovely, there's some beautiful styles around, but it's not personal. So then what makes me, it makes me wonder what's going to happen when maybe someone gets interested in the next style. do they then think they need to rip out their kitchen because it's Mediterranean and that was so 5 years ago, and now it's clean and sleek and modern and grey all over again? And if you choose something that suits your personality and your family and the way you live as well, because then it's more durable, then it just stands a test of time. That you'll love it
becomes a very
forever.
classic home design, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, so you're choosing all these sustainable and healthy materials in the first place.
Yeah.
That becomes the story, and
Yeah.
then that becomes the classicness that it will stand the test of time.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the term classic is one of those words that has lost its meaning. I think we think that classic is something that is maybe a little bit sort of conservative, but really classic should be whatever suits you, because it stands a test of time for you and your family, and it's something that you sort of grow with and love.
Love it. It's all about having greater balance.
I think there's this misconception that if you haven't done everything 100% perfectly sustainable, then you've either wasted your time or you can't actually call it sustainable. But I think the idea is just do as much as you can, do as much as you can afford. And it's like, when you're doing a renovation, you're not all the time going to be doing everything at once. But if you can just chip away at things, so, next time you maybe do need your timber floor, we talked about that earlier, if it needed to be refinished or resanded, just look at how they finish it. What do they put on top? What do they seal it with? And can you make a better choice there? If you're repainting inside your house, can you make a better choice? And you just do as much as you can do. I think the thing is to just be mindful of when you're doing things before you just go to the local shop, whatever the shop is that sells homewares or materials. Just question what it is that you're buying, because it's very easy to just buy the quickest thing or the cheapest thing or the closest thing. But sometimes if you just stop and think about it for a minute, and you can find other solutions and you can just dig a little bit deeper and find options. But yeah, certainly don't get put off by people saying that it needs to be perfect. Anything can be helpful.
Yeah, it's not healthy to have an all or nothing approach to living sustainably.
We don't often have all the knowledge that we need at the time when we need it. So if we don't know, like I've done this myself, I've renovated loads of homes over the years, of my own homes, every place I've been in I've renovated. And I think back to the first house I renovated, I was in my mid-20s and I didn't know what I know now, but I made the decisions that I did based on what I thought was the best thing at the time. And I just kept kind of chipping away at it. So you just start asking questions and investigating and just do what you can as you can. And yeah, don't worry about perfection because it doesn't exist. Even if you think that you've done the most perfect sustainable home, the next person will look at it and will pick holes through it. And if you look in design magazines and different architecture practices, they all have their different methodologies and they have their different ideas of what a sustainable house is. And they're all experts in their field. So the experts have different ideas and they don't do an all or nothing approach. They just do as much as they can do.
Thanks so much for your time, Nadine.
Thanks for having me.
It's been really insightful to hear about what those 3 myths are in relation to sustainable and healthy materials and in interior design, and how having stories is a really important part of good and suitable interior design that suits your home and the planet. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the ReNewy Living Podcast. I hope you're feeling more confident about taking a localised and actionable approach to living sustainably. If this episode has inspired you to take simple action, please follow the ReNewy Living Podcast so you can catch every episode. We'd love it if you could share this episode with your friends. It's a great way to spread the word and help more people join the conversation about living sustainably. You can even send me an email with the episode that really made it for you. Hearing your positive actions for change helps me understand how these stories work within our shared communities. Head over to my website, renewyliving.com.au for the show notes and blog posts from this episode. I look forward to sharing more stories from the people of Newcastle as we delve into our community's diverse social and environmental practices for positive planetary change from a localised perspective.